In the UK, it was very big, particularly among the older voters, because if you look at the voting patterns, for instance, London, which has a lot of immigrants, they voted to stay in. But in the rest of England, where there is deep concern about the levels of immigration, they voted out. And so it's a very, very big issue. And it's the same thing, I think, is in play in this country. I think this is why this vote, this Brexit vote, is really a dress rehearsal for what we're going to see here in November.
And that was Ken Chandler, the executive editor of Newsmax Media, earlier in the program, discussing how immigration and how it fueled the Brexit results. And welcome back here to a special edition of Newsmax Prime. Remember, we want you to join the conversation. All you have to do is call the number on your screen. That's 1-877-NEWSMAX. Again, that's 1-877-639-7629. We look forward to hearing from you. Now, for much more on this topic, we want to welcome in former 2008 GOP presidential candidate Tom Tancredo. He joins us via Skype. Also here with us via Skype, president of FAIR, Dan Stein. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us here on Newsmax Prime. It's a pleasure to have you.
Glad to be here.
Donald Trump weighed in on Brexit and its impact on immigration today from his golf course in Turnberry, Scotland. Here's what he had to say.
I really do see a parallel between what's happening in the United States and what's happening here. People want to see borders. They don't necessarily want people pouring into their country that they don't know who they are and where they come from. They have no idea. And I think, you know, it not only did it win, but it won by a much bigger margin than people thought it would happen.
Dan, your reaction to what you just heard from Mr. Trump?
It happens that I spent about 2 weeks in London just until about 2 days ago, and it was very clear that immigration was the driver of the Brexit move. And the language that the Brexit forces used, you know, hashtag take control, was very much framed around the fact that immigration was, you know, there were promises made about controlling immigration, you know, by Theresa May and others back maybe 2010, and those promises weren't kept. You know, if you take a look at the other issues that were driving the debate, trade, the amount of money that went to the EU versus what came back, no question about it, immigration was the prime mover and the major reason why Brexit won.
Tom, do you agree?
I most certainly do agree. And I can tell you, between the Supreme Court ruling that let stand the lower court decision that stopped Obama's illegal activities with regard to illegal immigration, and then this vote by Great Britain, I'm just ecstatic. I mean, it's been a good couple of days for a change, some really good news. And, you know, it's really fascinating to me because I think back to some original debates that even I had, and I tried to bring up in the Congress of the United States about the European Union and the concerns that we should all have about what they were doing over there. Because you have to remember, and probably very few people do anymore, but the original idea, the thing it was sold to the people of Great Britain and throughout Europe on, was the idea of a common market. That's it. No more barriers to trade, right. You know, bingo, that was it. Nobody talked about a European Parliament. Nobody talked about a Parliament that made laws governing the actual immigration policies for all of the member countries. Nobody talked about all of the regulations that would be imposed by this body in Geneva. So, you know, in Belgium, this is a parallel that we should pay attention to, because all of the trade policies that the United States is entering into have a common element, and that is an immigration component. In trade policies, we better be careful about it, but I am ecstatic that Great Britain did what they did, and I certainly agree it revolved a lot around immigration. But the bigger issue is a loss of sovereignty. And people feel it, they feel it here, and they should.
And people are paying attention to it. Marcia from New York is paying attention to it. She joins us live now here on Newsmax Prime. What's your question or comment?
Hi, Miranda. And I'm sorry, I called you Madeline last time we were on.
That's all right. I took it, you know what? I took that as a compliment because JD calls me Madeline sometimes. So I enjoyed it. I did. I really did.
Okay.
Good to have you back.
Yeah, thank you. My comment is this. I couldn't believe, well, actually I could believe it because she's the way she is. But Hillary made this comment about Donald Trump today, saying, oh, well, Donald Trump is totally disqualified to be president because he supported Brexit. And I'm saying to myself, so what are you telling the British people then? You're saying that the British people are stupid and that, that they can't decide for themselves what's best? But this is a bigger issue. The bigger issue is this. It's her total mentality, her other people, Paul Ryans of the world too, that the elitists, they need to hold our hand and tell us how to live and how to vote and what kind of economy we should have, what kind of trade policies we should have. And we don't have the brains as a people to be able to decide that for themselves.
Yeah, Marcia, you bring up a really good point because when the president was visiting the UK back in April, he said some things that really upset a lot of people there. They thought that he was basically patronizing a lot of the citizens of the UK for saying that they should stay in the EU, basically. Did not go over very well. You bring up a lot of good points. I want to get your reaction, Dan, to what you just heard from Marcia. She brings up that, it's almost kind of insulting hearing Hillary Clinton, diss Donald Trump for his support of the UK exiting from the EU because he's saying, I understand the Brits. I understand why they voted for this. Does she have a point?
Well, this has been a constant theme here of Hillary Clinton's campaign. Instead of arguing the policy, whether Brexit was good or bad or immigration's good or bad, she comes back and attacks the qualifications of Donald Trump, says he's not qualified. That's really not a policy debate. That's an ad hominem attack, and that's been her line of attack all the way through. But when I was in London, I was amazed at the length at which the pro-Remain forces were telling the British people things were at stake. They were saying this would be the end of Western civilization if Britain decided to drop out of the EU. No evidence whatsoever. They just made those kinds of statements. And the Brexit forces had a masterful language. They referred to what the Remain forces were doing as Project Fear. And so every time David Cameron or one of his allies would talk about, oh, this would happen or that would happen, the Boris Johnson and others just said, oh, that's just Project Fear, same old, we come to expect it. And I think what we see with Hillary Clinton is it's this beginning of efforts to grasp at straws. When you realize you're really out of touch with the mainstream voters, you look at the polling that happened, as you mentioned, in the EU, in the UK, all outside of London, all of Britain voted very strongly to leave. And outside of Scotland, which all voted to remain, it was basically, overwhelmingly in favor of leaving.
Right, but not as many immigrants going there. Real quickly, we only have a few minutes remaining. President Obama expressed frustration after the Supreme Court blocked his executive order that would have shielded millions of immigrants from deportation. Let's listen to what he had to say and let's get your reaction.
In the end, it is my firm belief that immigration is not something to fear. We don't have to wall ourselves off from those who may not look like us right now or pray like we do or have a different last name, because being an American is about something more than that. What makes us Americans is our shared commitment to an ideal, that all of us are created equal.
Obama's immigration policies are illegal, at least according to the Supreme Court. So what happens with those millions of illegal immigrants that are basically hiding from deportation?
Well, I'll tell you that it's a horrible state of affairs when the first reaction I had when I read the opinion, heard about the opinion, was, of course, initially joyous, but immediately followed by, what's this guy going to do now? Because I assure you, he has absolutely no compunction about shredding the Constitution. He does it every time he gets the chance. And he will do it again. I guarantee you this, that they are sitting somewhere in the White House tonight, and tomorrow, and for however long it's going to take, for them to figure out a way to get around this.
Well, we'll have to see what happens.
Because they don't care about this thing called the Constitution.
We'll have to see what happens. Tom, Tancredo, Dan Stein, thank you, gentlemen, for joining us here for Newsmax Prime. You heard from our guests. We want to know what you think. Join the conversation by calling this number, 1-877-NEWSMAX. Again, that's 1-877-639-7629. We'll be right back.